So last night I got out of a screening of Batman the Killing Joke at the AMC Promenade 16, and I figured I'd do my thoughts about it. Now, there's a couple things to keep in mind with this review. There will be major spoilers, so if you don't want to hear about that, just wait until the film comes out on DVD and Blu-ray, or a digital copy on iTunes, which should be available right now. But if you don't want to hear that, then watch the film first before coming back to this. And second off, there won't be much in the way of footage. It'll just be mostly pictures from the movie. So if you don't want to watch like the video and just hear the audio, you could just hear the audio and do what you like to do. No harm done. So Batman the Killing Joke is a story that doesn't need that much of an introduction, but I'll give it to you anyway. It was written by Alan Moore in 1988, published by DC Comics, naturally. It was a very infamous story for a multitude of reasons. One, it was very dark. It was very unlike most Batman stories at that point, and it was very infamous for its shooting of Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, which, although not known at the time, it ended up setting her on the path to become Oracle, which we all enjoy because she's a great character. She was great as Batgirl and she's great as Oracle. Nevertheless, it was a very influential story. A lot of Batman media has taken or has paid homage to the story one way or another. So it seemed only sensible that Warner Bros. Animation would want to make a film adaptation of The Killing Joke as part of their DC animated lineup. The thing was, the story isn't exactly long. It's not a very long story. There's some flashbacks. If you were to make a straight up adaptation of The Killing Joke, it probably would have ended up being under an hour, maybe 45 minutes, which is exactly what the Killing Joke section of this film is runs for, because what they ended up doing to pad out the running time to a 76-minute length, they included a 22, maybe even 30-minute prologue to the story, which details Batgirl's time with Batman. And that sounds like a great idea. It really does. Because it showcases her relationship to Batman and how they work together, and showing her at her prime before she is tragically shot down by the Joker. That can make for some great material, and it can make the events of The Killing Joke that much more tragic, as it's an event that not only breaks her father, Commissioner Gordon, but also Batman himself. But keep in mind that I said that it was a good idea on paper. In execution, it was a bit of a different story. Actually, it was very much a different story. Now, before I get to what doesn't work about this movie, and there are quite a few things that don't work about this movie on a fundamental level, but the actual adaptation of The Killing Joke, the actual meat of the story, is very good. Like, the actual Killing Joke portion is very good, pretty much great. It's been a really long time since I've read the story, so I don't know if it's exactly word for word. Some people I have talked to said that there's a couple things taken out, but for the most part, it is a very accurate adaptation. Also, Mark Hamill is excellent. No complaints about Mark Hamill. He was pretty much the greatest thing about this movie. So if you were to see The Killing Joke, it would just be for Mark Hamill, and also the actual story of the graphic novel is pretty faithful. So that's something to also look forward to. If you didn't like the graphic novel, you won't like the movie, so don't bother. But anyway, my problems with this adaptation is the the actual problems start very, very, very early on. It starts. It's pretty much from minute 1 to minute 30, where for a while I absolutely hated this movie, because I was extremely bored with the Batgirl storyline that had to do with her trying to find this mob guy who has a unhealthy fixation on her. Like, he wants to have sex with her, he wants to kill her, he wants to just do whatever he wants. and Batman is telling her to stop, to not pursue this, but she has none of it, and I could see what they're trying to do. They're trying to give a context to Batman's relationship to Batgirl, which, like I said, it's a great idea. It would make the Killing Joke portion that much more dramatic, but the way that they do it sort of diminishes Barbara's character, because when I think Batgirl, I do think someone who is strong, someone who can hold her own, someone who isn't as emotionally damaged as Batman is, but someone who also keeps it together in a way. She is not portrayed like this in the movie. She is portrayed as someone who's very cocky, someone who is very frustrated, both on an emotional level and pretty much a sexual level, because she has a bit of a lust for Batman, which ends up culminating in them fighting and then having sex on a rooftop. And it was at that moment where I sort of tuned out of the film for a while, at least until the Killing Joke portion started, because I realized, I felt at that moment Martha has been topped. If you haven't seen Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, go ahead and watch that. A lot of people did not like that moment. A lot of people thought the film sucked right then and there. I personally didn't feel like that. I think it's a very good movie. The Ultimate Edition is the best version of it, but that's neither here or there. But the thing is, at that moment, the Martha moment was such a turn for the movie that made people go from, okay, this is all right, to, okay, this is total garbage. That became a joke. A lot of people made fun of it. I personally think Batman having sex with Batgirl on a rooftop tops it, because that does not feel like, it doesn't feel like it belongs in something called The Killing Joke. It belongs in a Frank Miller piece. In fact, All-Star Batman and Robin has a moment where Batman has sex with Black Canary on a rooftop after he burns a bunch of people to death. It just feels. It does feel like there are moments where this adaptation is a bit, I don't know if hypocritical is the right term for it, because there is also a point in the movie where Batman lectures Batgirl about this guy, and he's saying that he's objectifying you, he's getting under your skin, and blah, he's not afraid of you. But objectification is really like one thing I picked up on, because the film itself objectifies Batgirl. I'm not gonna go into like some sort of rant or something about that, but it is something I noticed, because Batman talks about that, and yet when we get to the sex scene, he grabs her ass. Okay, and when we're reintroduced to Batgirl in the Killing Joke section, when she is jogging across the park, the camera leans up on her ass, and just kind of like watches her in a sort of voyeuristic manner. Now, once again, I'm not gonna go into some sort of long thing about why that could be troublesome, but it is something that I felt was worth noting about. Right? It didn't make me go, oh my god, I am so offended by this. Just more like, that is weird considering what has happened before. But the reason why I felt it didn't work, and this is going to sound terrible, I'm making no bones about this, but it's going to sound terrible, but it sort of diminishes the impact when the Joker shoots her in the spine, strips her naked, and takes pictures of her. Because since the film is already objectifying her, having this admittedly horrible event befallen her, it lacks impact to me. If The prologue was more of a father-daughter sort of relationship with Batman and Batgirl, where it was portrayed as sort of like another adventure for them, something that where they are not essentially having fun, but working as a team, as a family unit, showing their camaraderie, and then and not having the whole sex stuff, not having all of the crap with that guy that's objectifying her, quote unquote, and then have the Joker do all that stuff. It would be a lot more horrific. It would be a lot more traumatic for both the characters and the audience, because all we would be seeing is Batgirl as a teenager, as essentially a child, and then watching her be violated like that could be more emotional, more heart-wrenching. But in it as it stands in this form, I didn't feel as horrified as I should have been, because it didn't feel like the movie made that big of a deal out of it, which I suppose is, in a darkly humorous anecdote, is a credit to the adaptation, because Alan Moore just said, "Hey, is it okay if I do this?" And they're like, "Okay," and he was like, "All right," and so he just shot Batgirl, kind of like, oh, I just did it. So, but I guess they're staying true to the adaptation part, as horrible as that sounds. But I think as a movie, it should have been more impactful. And this sort of brings me to my ultimate point. If you're going to adapt something as short but as influential as The Killing Joke, and you want to add more to it, if you want to expand upon it, what they ended up doing, it just felt wrong in a way. I hate saying this, it felt kind of gross. You could have expanded upon the Joker origin. You could have had those Batgirl editions I talked about. You could have done anything except what they did. and what makes it worse is that none of what happens in these first 30 minutes matters. You could remove it and have a 50-minute, 45-minute Killing Joke movie, and nothing would have been lost. You just would have watched it and just went like, well, that was fun. Well, not necessarily fun, but like, well, that was a thing, and then left. But by having those 30 minutes be your starter, and then watching The Killing Joke, you'd be like, oh, what was the point of that? It just felt like I saw some random sex adventure, and now Batgirl is paralyzed. So, okay then. Oh God, have I been really talking for almost 13 minutes? About to be 13 minutes. There we go, 13 minutes. It's weird, because after that point, the movie becomes really good. The Killing Joke portion is really good. Mark Hamill is fantastic. Kevin Conroy is fine. The animation is okay. It's kind of on par with recent DC animated stuff. It's not exactly big screen worthy, but it's not exactly low budget stuff. It's not exactly low budget, choppy all the time. Anyway, it's not a horrible movie. It has a horrible first 30 minutes, but I guess it sort of makes up with a very, very good 40 minutes after that. So, like, if I were to rate The Killing Joke, I mean, when I got out of the movie, I was like, oh well, I mean, like, I had problems with the first 30 minutes, but it was good. I liked it, like 7 out of 10. But the more I thought about that opening act, the more I hated it. The more I hated it with a passion. I mean, not as much passion as you're hearing me right now, because I don't want to yell and scream. I mean, that's I'm not helping anybody by doing that, but I hated it enough to sort of lower my rating down. It went from a 7 to like a 6.5 maximum. If it's there is a great movie in here, you just have to go through a lot to get to it. Like, if I were to rate it by sections, those first 30 minutes would get like a 3, even a 2, while the Killing Joke part would get like an 8, 8.5. And then when you add that together, it just goes down to 6.5, 6.5. It's really that bad. I mean, to me anyway. If other people like it, that's cool. I mean, I'm not gonna diss anybody that likes that section, but for me, I was very I didn't connect with it. as the film wanted me to. But in that regard, I just have to say, if you want to watch it, watch it. If you enjoy it, great. If you think it's a great movie, great. I just didn't think it was as good as it could have been. So, so that's pretty much my final thoughts. I'm sorry I rambled on for a really long time, especially by rambling on about a section of the movie rather than the film as a whole. But really, it was really that section of the movie was so not connected to the whole story that it really did call attention to itself. So anyway, have a good day, evening, night, morning, afternoon, and I hope to see you again at some point. Or yeah, uh, see you later. Bye.